everybody! It's Glitter Informer and welcome to the beach episode of Meitantei Pretty. Don't be fooled by the setting. This episode is not filled with swimsuits and sandcastles. Instead, you'll find suffering and struggle. First person to struggle this week is the writer of this episode. See, Niji outright won last episode, and the scriptwriter had to somehow come up with a way for the girls to track him down and get the Makoto jewel back. But how would they do that if he's already returned to the Phantom Thief's secret lair? We can't have the heroes confronting the villains on their home turf this early in the season. That's something you'd save for the mid-season climax at the earliest. So the writer came up with the best solution he could. Make Niji really stupid. We know from episode 3 that Uso Noir wants the Phantom Thieves to steal the Makoto jewels and defeat Pretty Cure. In that episode, when Agesen tried to run away with her plundered prize, Luluka and Mashutan stopped her with a message from him, saying he wanted her to do both those things. That being said, Niji retreating with the Makoto jewel makes sense. Pochitan didn't faint until after he left, so it was reasonable for him to assume he couldn't stand a chance against Pochitan's space-time fairy powers. Also in episode 5, Uso Noir specifically said, "Retrieve them. This is your final chance." He didn't order Niji to defeat the Cures or anything. Clearly the main priority should be the Makoto jewel. Uso Noir would certainly prefer if he took Pretty Cure out as well, but he'd still be satisfied if Niji came back with just the jewel and not the Cure's heads. So what does Niji do now that he's finally obtained a Makoto jewel? Does he come back to the villain's theater lair and present Uso Noir with his prize so Uso Noir can reward him with head pats or something? Of course not, silly viewer. Why do the obvious thing when he can instead snatch defeat from the jaws of victory? Instead, he decides to risk it all by challenging the Cures again. He doesn't even consult with his boss first. There's nothing keeping him from holding on to the current Makoto jewel for safekeeping and then finding another one to turn into a Haninda for the next fight. It's not like they're in short supply or anything. If he did that, he'd still have a net gain of one Makoto jewel, which is more than any of the other villains have, even if he lost the fight. But no, God forbid the Pretty Cures lose even a single Makoto jewel. We have to make Niji lose in the end, no matter how much we have to tie the plot into a pretzel in order to do so. Well, this episode isn't going to review itself. After a flashback recap sequence, it starts with Anna, Mikuru, and Pochitan arriving at the Kyoto Detective Agency. While Anna stays behind with Jet Senpai to nurse Pochitan back to health, Mikuru runs off to search for Niji on her own. I get that Mikuru blames herself for this whole debacle. Her comment about swallows flying low last episode inspired Niji's getaway plan. What does she think she's gonna be able to do by herself? She can't transform without Anna. At best she'll be completely ineffectual, at worst she'll get herself killed. Mikuru arrives at the school where the statue used to be because I guess she thinks Niji might still be there? And it turns out she's right. Niji has returned alone to that very place. Mikuru's all alone, with neither a fairy partner nor the ability to transform. Granted, Niji doesn't know she can't transform by herself, and given that he doesn't have his monsters with him, that probably explains why he doesn't attack her right then and there. Instead, he tells her that he and his Hanindas from last time are going to be waiting for her at the beach, where they'll put on a spectacular show. Niji calls Mikuru baby twice during this conversation, which is super weird on its own because he calls everyone baby, but he also calls the beach romantic. I have no idea why this adult-looking guy keeps talking like he's trying to rizz up this middle schooler, but it makes no sense, especially since he clearly hates her and wants to kill her. At the detective agency, Pochitan is chilling out, healing up, and drinking milk. Meanwhile, Anna tearfully regales Jet Senpai with a tale of how she and Mikuru lost to the Phantom Thieves last episode. Anna blames herself for the incident. After finding out that Mikuru had friends already, Anna didn't want to be a bother to her, so she took on a case on her own. This led to the chain of arguments between the two, which led to their subpar fighting performance. Jet Senpai's response is that it's like Anna and Mikuru have switched places. Apparently, Anna thinking so much about Mikuru that she can't act is her acting a lot like Mikuru, which I really don't get. The show uses a flashback to episode 1 as an example, where Mikuru was struggling to solve the case of the missing tiara and becoming discouraged, but I don't think that was an issue of Mikuru thinking about Anna and being hesitant because of it. She just wasn't confident enough in her own abilities. Jet Senpai also said that Mikuru impulsively running off on her own is something Anna would normally do instead. For the example for this, the show flashes back to episode 2 where Anna ran off to search for that old lady who stole the pen. I guess this example makes a bit more sense, but it's really not the same. In episode 2, when Anna said she was going to go search for the old lady, Jet Senpai told her to wait up, and she did. Only once he gave her the pre-kit voice memo did she run off, and nobody had a problem with it. But in this episode, when Mikuru said she was going to go search for Niji, Anna told her to take her along, and Mikuru ran off and ignored her. I'd say now is way more impulsive than back then. Despite the holes in both of these arguments, Jet Senpai says that Anna and Mikuru are already influencing each other's behaviors, which is a sign they've grown incredibly close together for the short period of time they've known each other. He even says that they're a fated and miraculous pair, which could hardly be any more lesbian-coded. There's been so much subtext between these two, I swear, I sincerely hope the theory of Mikuru being Anna's mom turns out to be false, because that would get really awkward and gross. Anna gathers her courage and calls Mikuru using the voice memo. This is how she finds out about the whole beach thing, so she and Mikuru both arrive at the beach to confront Niji. Here's where I should mention that Luluka and Mashutan have also come to watch. Luluka instantly figures out the reason why Niji chose the beach as the site of their battle. At the time, I was like, whoa, I have no idea what Niji has planned. I can't even guess, how did she know? But then it's revealed that Niji was planning on having the Hanindas fight the girls over the ocean. There's no solid ground to stand on, so the girls would be forced to tread water. By contrast, the Hanindas are birds, so they can literally fly. So I was like, bro, that is so obvious in hindsight. How did that not occur to me? I'm so stupid! So the girls get to the beach, transform, and go toe-to-toe with the Hanindas, who punt them into the water. But fortunately, these girls happen to have a story-breaking power. Remember the pre-kit light from episode 4, which can draw literally anything the girls can imagine? They use it to create platforms so they can Super Mario their way out of the sea. Now, they're on literally equal footing with the giant flying monsters. Of course, the question still remains of why they don't draw a chemical spray weapon that turns all Hanindas it touches to stone and has no effect on anyone else. Or a wristwatch that, when tapped 3 times, instantly purifies all Hanindas within a 50-mile radius. Or a cure for Alzheimer's. I wish the writers would put in a hard limit on what exactly the pre-kit lights can and can't do. Well, now that the playing field is level, it's time for the Hanindas to pull out their trump card. They fuse together into a single, extra giant, 4-winged Haninda. And the cures promptly get their butts handed to them. As they lie on the ground defenseless, waiting to die, Cure Answer has one last heart-to-heart with Cure Mystique. She tells her that she originally came to the school last episode to give her her umbrella. Upon seeing Mikuru with her friends, she realized that stranded here in time and space, she's all alone. This is the first episode in the entire show we truly see Anna being emotionally vulnerable. I love seeing that there's more to her than just being the Genki lead cure. She's just as distressed as one would expect from a person in her situation. She just hides it with a smile because she doesn't want to bother anybody. This aspect of Anna's character development is my favorite part of this episode. Pure Mystique is quite upset with herself for not having realized how lonely Anna would be after getting stuck in 1999 and separated from all of her family and friends from her time. She realizes she should have been there for Anna instead of going and investigating on her own herself. Alright, this conversation is important and sweet and all, but it goes on for over a minute, and neither Niji nor the Haninda do anything to attack the girls the whole time. Despite the fact that the cures are literally too weak to even sit up, let alone fight back. Niji could have easily ended everything right then and there and returned home triumphantly to Usonora Senpai, but he doesn't, solely due to plot convenience. This and this alone provides just enough time for Jet Senpai and Pochitan to arrive on the scene. See, Pochitan sensed something was the matter and insisted on going to help the cures, and so Jet Senpai went along with her. Yeah, I think I'm done using gender-neutral pronouns for Pochitan. As far as I can tell, none of the original Japanese dialogue in the show itself refers to Pochitan by any particular gender, but the official English subtitles on Crunchyroll use she and her pronouns. I don't know if Toei themselves have a say as to the Crunchyroll subtitles, but they are official nonetheless. Plus, the Pretty Cure Wiki calls Pochitan a girl as well. And given that almost every season of Pretty Cure after Fresh has had a female main mascot, it's safe to assume that Pochitan is a girl. If it turns out Pochitan was actually a boy this whole time, I will get down on my knees and profusely apologize. Anyways, remember those new pre-kit thingies Jet Senpai made last episode and gave to Anna? Well, back when they were at the detective agency earlier this episode, Anna and Mikuru gave those thingies to Jet Senpai for him to inspect. I forgot to mention this, but last episode, when Pochitan did the space-time laser beam thingy, the pre-kit thingies glowed. So they wanted him to investigate it. So now, Jet Senpai and Pochitan have the new pre-kits. Pochitan takes it upon herself to dodge the Haninda's flurry of projectile attacks to deliver the pre-kit items to Pretty Cure. As the Haninda attacks the two of them, Jet Senpai shouts to Pochitan, "Leave this to me!" And then proceeds to do literally nothing. To be fair, he tries to have the projectiles hit him instead of Pochitan, but they're homing projectiles, and one of them makes a beeline for Pochitan instead. She is extremely powerful, after all. There's another thing I forgot to mention last episode. Until Pochitan's laser beam stunt, the Phantom Thieves were completely unaware that the girls had a space-time carry with them. Upon realizing they did, Ushiwar got noticeably frustrated, which is by far the most emotional we've seen him this whole time. So yeah, Pochitan is clearly enemy number 1 at the moment. Anyways, the projectile is just about to skewer the baby fairy. But then, a bunch of dark beams come out of nowhere and slice through every single projectile. Nobody knows who shot those beams of darkness. Whoever did came in and out so quickly that all that could be seen was a brief shot of black high heels and a cloud of dust where somebody jumped away. But let's be real, we all know who that person was. It was Cure Arcana's shadow. Now, I get the heroes not realizing this. Nobody outside of the villains is aware of Cure Arcana's shadow's existence. But Niji should have instantly known. There are only so many people on the beach. Cure Answer and Cure Mystique are too beaten up to do anything. Pochitan's laser beam was bright instead of dark. Jet Senpai did literally nothing, the Haninda wouldn't have destroyed its own attack, and Niji is himself. The only ones unaccounted for are Luluka and Mashutan, who disappeared sometime during the fight and are currently nowhere to be seen. Plus, who else would have fancy black shoes and magical black beams but a black Pretty Cure? The only culprit possible is Cure Arcana's shadow. We then get another long, drawn-out conversation between Answer and Mystique, who use the last of their energy to push themselves off the ground. Mystique holds her hand out to Answer, who tells Mystique about Jet Senpai's remark about them switching places. Now, this makes sense. Back in episode 1, when Mikuru was having her self-esteem crisis, Anna encouraged her by holding out her hand to Mikuru. Now, Mikuru is doing the same thing to Anna to encourage her during her crisis. As the two of them manage to stand, Answer tells Mystique that even though she's still stuck in 1999, she's alright now, because now she knows she has Mystique inside of her heart. Aw, that's so sweet. Except once again, Niji and the Haninda just stand there uselessly and let their ops get back up. The most Niji does is shout, "For what?" in angry confusion. Why were you surprised that the two girls got up eventually? You just left them there without killing them when you had the chance. Well, the writer had to figure out some way for Pochitan to get there in time. She gives them their new pre-kit thingies, which by the way are called pre-kit mirror lupes. The pre-kit mirror lupe is a heart-shaped handheld mirror which can swing open to reveal a magnifying glass. Using these surprise tools to finally help them, Answer, Mystique, and Pochitan team up to perform an attack called Flying Spectre. Get it? Because not only do detectives stereotypically use magnifying glasses to inspect stuff, But also the two cures are starting to mirror each other now that they've become so close. And also you could use a mirror in some glass or a mirror submerged in water to create a rainbow. That is a visible spectrum. Guess what the background in this attack is colored, and also what the projectile the girls shoot is colored. Rainbow! Symbolism is cool and all, but I'm not a huge fan of the attack itself. It just goes on for too long. I know I called the This Is Our Answer finisher attack simplistic way back in episode 1's review. The more the show goes on, the more I really came to like it. It's short and snappy so it doesn't overstay its welcome, but it's also gorgeous to look at and it's simply fun. This, on the other hand, on paper it sounds like a good idea. Pochitan shoots a beam which turns into two special Makoto jewels, which the Cures place in their new weapons. They then shoot two beams which combine and turn into a bird, which slams into the Haninda and purifies it. There is so much filler! The girls just have to call out, "Open! Pre-kit Mirror Lupe!" when they open their pre-kit Mirror Lupes. Then they have to call out, "Makoto Jewel!" when the jewels appear, because I guess we can't see them or the Lupes. And then they have to pause and play with their new toys while saying "look" and "feel," because how else is Toei gonna sell their merch? And then they just have to say, "solve the mystery," even though what mystery are they even solving? This episode has even less mystery than the last one. And after that, they just have to say, "This is our answer," even though this isn't the "This is our answer" finisher attack. Oh, then do they do the actual attack part of the attack? Look, just one of these things wouldn't be a huge deal, but I swear it just goes on and on. It feels like they're prioritizing selling toys over actually defeating the monster. But hey, the bird thing is pretty neat. Not only is it bird versus bird, but also, whenever Anna and Mikuru got a Jimmy Neutron Brain Blast moment in the first 4 episodes, a bunch of feathers would appear as a stylistic effect. There's also feathers in this attack here. And you know what else has feathers? That's right, a bird! You guys are so smart. So the girls' flying spectrum the daylights out of the giant monster, turning it back into 2 Makoto jewels? Back when Niji first created the Hanindas in episode 5, we only saw 1 Makoto jewel getting corrupted, and it was only 1 item that Niji stole, that being the bird statue. Unless the 2 birds each counted as a separate item? But whatever, I guess there are 2 of them now. Well, now the fight's over, and really, Niji hardly has anyone to blame but himself. Cure Arcana Shadow's mysterious act of sabotage wouldn't have ever happened if Niji had done his freaking job instead of just sitting there with his thumb up his butt waiting for Pochitan to save the day. Regardless, Niji is not taking it well. For the first time, we see him without his fancy top hat on, and he's lying down by the shore clearly on the verge of tears. And Luluka has the gall to come up to him and stoically say, "Let's go back," even though she was also responsible for him losing. Granted, this was his last chance, not hers, but does she really think Uso Noir wouldn't punish her too if he ever found out? Well, whatever. The sun finally comes out after all this time, symbolizing the fact that the Cures have finally come out on top through the sheer power of plot convenience. Now that they've absolutely destroyed Niji, the Keiko mystery and the ghost mystery are now resolved. Keiko's sister was even able to get in touch with the real Keiko. Also, somehow, the bird statue returned to the school. Up until now, every time a Haninda was turned back into an item, the item fell into the Cure's hands and they returned it to the original owner. So either the bird statue just respawned in its original location for some reason, or the girls somehow logged the entire gigantic statue from the beach all the way to the school. While everything's sunshine and roses for the girls, things are the exact opposite for Niji, who is being punished for his plot-induced incompetence. Back during the fight scene, Niji said that if he didn't defeat Pretty Cure, he had no future. We don't exactly find out what he means by that, but we do see him being lowered down by a trapdoor on the stage into who knows where. Whatever's down there, Niji is freaking out and panicking like he's being put to death or something. But I don't think it's that sort of punishment time, because otherwise, why would Niji have returned to the villain's lair instead of running off and getting a job at McDonald's or something? Niji begs and pleads with Uso Noir, and he finally persuades his boss to stop lowering the trapdoor by telling him important intel he gathered during the fight. Your answer isn't originally from the year 1999. Yeah, the villains had absolutely no idea about the time travel thing until Niji overheard Answer telling Mystique about it during the fight this episode. Even Luluka is surprised, and she's a super genius who knows everything. Uso Noir is taken aback as well, because this was never written in the Tome of Mirages. I guess that book can ordinarily foretell more than just the locations of the Makoto jewels. Well, we never do find out exactly what happens to Niji in the end, because that's where this episode comes to a close. And good riddance. I was really excited for this episode, but especially upon going over it again while writing this script, I just did not like this one overall. I mean, Anna's increased characterization and development was a huge plus, and I also appreciated getting to see more of the mysterious Luluka. I'm super curious to know why she spared Pochitan. She doesn't seem to be a mole secretly working to destroy the Phantom Thieves Guild from within. Otherwise, she wouldn't have helped Goemon out with fighting the Makoto Jewel in episode 4. Maybe she's just particularly sympathetic to fairies, given that her best friend is one? That's the best guess I have right now. But other than the titular cures themselves, this episode was so disappointing. I absolutely love the villains in this season so far, so seeing this episode completely lobotomize Niji was heartbreaking. The guy was shown to be intelligent before, you know? Something that made him stand out from the other villains was his ability to psychoanalyze his enemies and then say the exact right things to demoralize them. His Haninda plan in episode 5 was pretty smart. Not to mention, he came the closest out of all the villains so far to actually defeating the girls. A lackluster finisher attack I wouldn't have minded so much, but since the entire episode hinges on Niji holding the idiot ball, it's hard to ignore. It's clearer than a magnifying glass that the guy in charge of the script couldn't come up with a way to have the cures come out victorious through their own wits and strength, so he just bent the plot over backwards to make everything work out their way. It's just really sad. Oh, and speaking of magnifying glasses, one more nitpick about that attack. The magnifying glasses were completely opaque. What's the point of having a magnifying glass if you can't see through it? That's so stupid. Well, next episode, I hope we'll get back into the groove of things. The girls seem like they're finally going to return to solving an actual mystery, an escape room of sorts. Also, Anna finally gets to go to school somehow. I'll see you all next week for Anna's first day of school. Bye-bye!